The first time Captain Elias Ward saw Lyra, the alien woman from the distant star Sarath, the moment settled inside him like a quiet storm that he did not yet understand. The space station's hangar was usually nothing but cold metal, sharp lights, and the smell of fuel, but that day something felt different. The lights flickered softly, the air shifted, and the crew members who were usually loud stood strangely silent. At the center of the hangar, surrounded by tall guards in silver armor, Lyra took her first steps onto human steel. Her skin shimmered like warm silver touched by starlight, and her long, luminous hair flowed like liquid light behind her. She moved with a calm grace, not showing fear, not showing doubt, simply observing everything as if she were searching for something familiar in the foreign world around her. Elias had seen many alien species during his years in the fleet, but none held this kind of presence. She wasn't just beautiful, she carried a gentle strength, a quiet dignity that made everyone shift their stance when she walked past. Elias was assigned to greet her as the senior officer on duty, though he had not expected the assignment and had not asked for it. He stood straight, controlling his breathing as she approached. He had fought in wars, faced enemies who wanted nothing but destruction, and seen people he cared for fade away into silence. His heart had built walls too thick for most people to climb, but when Lyra stopped in front of him, he felt a strange warmth press softly against those walls. Her eyes, bright like polished silver moons, met his. She studied his face with a stillness that made his own heartbeat too loud in his ears. And then she spoke, her voice soft enough to calm storms but firm enough to hold the strength of entire worlds. "You are Captain Elias Ward," she said, "the human who saved the Arkan colony." Her voice sounded like music wrapped in breath. Elias wasn't used to praise. He wasn't used to being seen as anything more than a soldier following orders. He cleared his throat and nodded. "I was part of the operation," he replied quietly, "just doing my duty." Something in her expression softened, almost like a delicate smile. "Your duty," she said slowly, "was guided by compassion. That is something my people admire deeply." Elias blinked, unsure how she could see something he himself had buried long ago. He had done what he did because he couldn't stand watching innocent lives vanish, human or alien. But he rarely spoke about it. Hearing her say it made the memory feel different, less heavy, more meaningful. Her guards stepped back, giving her more space, almost as if they knew she wanted to speak to him alone. Lyra took a half step closer, curious and unafraid. "Human hearts are loud," she said. "I can feel them. Yours is tired, but it is also strong." The words struck deeper than he expected. After years of war, years of pushing away feelings just to survive, it was almost painful to be seen so clearly. Elias felt his jaw tighten, but Lyra's gentle gaze didn't change. She wasn't pitying him. She wasn't judging him. She was simply observing him, like a beautiful star trying to understand what made a fragile little planet shine despite all the scars. He forced a small smile. "Long duty shifts," he said, trying to lighten the moment. But Lyra shook her head, her silver hair swaying slightly. "No, it is something else. Humans carry their wounds differently. They keep them inside their hearts until the heart becomes heavy." Her voice lowered. "I wish to understand this." Elias felt a strange mix of surprise and curiosity. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "There are many humans you could talk to." Lyra looked at him for a long moment. "Because when I look at you," she said, "I sense a story that is not finished, and I want to understand the human who continues to stand even when his spirit is tired." Those words stayed with Elias long after Lyra was escorted to the diplomatic wing. He watched her walk away, glowing softly under the metal lights, her presence shifting the air even after she disappeared around the corner. For the first time in years, something inside Elias felt awake, as if a quiet spark had ignited inside the ashes of his old battles. He did not know why her words mattered so much, but they did. They followed him through the hallways, lingered in his thoughts, even echoed in his dreams that night. He had met diplomats before. He had met warriors. He had met people who wanted to use him, fear him, or forget him. But Lyra saw him, truly saw him. And that single moment, The first time she spoke his name felt like it had settled into his life forever. Days passed, but the memory of Lyra stayed with Elias as if her presence had carved a quiet space in his heart. She remained on the station under diplomatic orders, and though their interactions were brief at first, each encounter seemed to stretch time. She would ask him questions, not about strategy or war, but about life, about humans, about what it meant to feel. She asked about laughter and sadness, about fear and hope, and Elias found himself talking more than he had in years. He told her about Earth's oceans, about the wind that could smell like rain, about sunlight that danced across morning fields. He spoke of moments so simple they seemed unimportant, yet she listened as if they were sacred. Elias realized slowly that someone was finally seeing not the soldier, but the man beneath. Lyra had a habit of walking beside him late at night on the observation deck. The station hung above the endless black of space, stars scattered like scattered dreams. She would stand next to him quietly, eyes fixed on the far-off lights of distant planets. "You humans have fragile bodies," she said one evening, her silver hair glowing faintly in the low light. "Yet your hearts are strong beyond measure. You fight, love, and dream even when the world is cruel. I do not understand it fully, but it impresses me." Elias leaned on the railing, watching a small asteroid field drift past. He had learned long ago that words could be weapons or shields, but with Lyra, words became something different. They became bridges. "It is not always easy," he said quietly. "Sometimes it hurts to care. Sometimes it feels like every choice could be the wrong one, but if you stop caring, you stop living, and I refuse to stop." She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "Then you are brave not for the battles you fight, but for the heart you hold open." The words fell softly between them, yet they carried weight that could tip entire worlds. Elias felt a heat in his chest, a swelling of emotion he had long buried. No one had ever called him brave for simply being human. He had been praised for skill, strategy, survival, but not for the simple act of being alive and feeling. Lyra's gaze was quiet, steady, but full of understanding, and in it he saw something he had not dared imagine: acceptance. As the days turned into weeks, a strange comfort grew between them. They would share meals in the small cafeteria, laughing softly at misunderstandings about human food or Sarath traditions. Lyra tasted everything with care, her expressions changing subtly with each flavor. "Earth chocolate is unlike anything my people eat," she said one afternoon, smiling faintly. Elias laughed, a sound that felt rusty even to his own ears. "It's sweet," he said. "Sometimes it makes life worth it." Lyra nodded, her eyes soft. "Perhaps that is why humans continue even when everything is against them. You seek the sweetness in life even when surrounded by pain." Her words made Elias pause. He had never considered it like that, never realized that surviving through pain was more than duty, it was hope. And now, standing beside her, hope felt alive and real, almost tangible. One quiet evening, as the station rotated slowly, giving them a perfect view of a glowing nebula, Lyra spoke again. "Elias, human hearts feel so much. I sense both joy and suffering in yours. It is beautiful and painful." Her voice trembled slightly, though her posture remained calm and regal. "I wish to understand this feeling. I wish to understand you." Elias looked at her, his chest tightening in a way he did not recognize. He wanted to tell her that it was dangerous, that opening his heart could bring only pain, but he could not. He realized he did not want to hide anymore. "Then let me show you," he said softly. "Let me show you what it means to live as a human, with everything we feel, everything we fight for, and everything we hope for." For a long time they stood side by side, eyes on the nebula, neither needing to speak again. Something unspoken passed between them, a bond forming quietly but strongly. It was not love yet, not in the fiery way he had heard of, but it was trust. And trust, Elias realized, was the first step toward something far greater. That night, as Elias returned to his quarters, he felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because someone had entered the dark space he had built around himself. Heavier because he knew that having someone see him this way made the world feel more dangerous. And yet the warmth of her presence lingered in his chest like a quiet promise, that perhaps even in the endless cold of space, hearts could connect. And in that thought, Elias found a strange, trembling hope, a hope he had thought long dead. Peace is always temporary in the galaxy, Elias thought as he watched the stars from the station's observation deck. He had felt it with Lyra, the quiet warmth that grew between them, the trust forming like fragile glass. But the galaxy had its own plans, as if it refused to let beauty remain untouched for long. Reports began arriving, first in whispers, then in urgent transmissions. A hostile species called the Dreeth had crossed the outer borders of Sarath's space. They attacked without warning, burning settlements and destroying outposts, leaving fear and smoke in their wake. Lyra's homeworld, so distant and fragile in human eyes, was suddenly under threat, and Elias felt a tight knot of helplessness coil in his chest. One afternoon, Lyra was summoned to a private briefing. She returned hours later, her silver hair catching the light, but her usual calm was gone. There was tension in her shoulders, a shadow in her eyes. She tried to smile at Elias, tried to keep the warmth they had shared intact, but he could see the storm behind her serene facade. "Elias," she said softly, almost whispering, "my people, we must return home immediately. The Dreeth, they are relentless. If we delay, there may be no Sarath left to protect." Elias' chest tightened. He wanted to tell her to stay, to ignore the orders, to remain on the station with him, where at least she would be safe. But he knew that her people's survival depended on her returning. Duty and love, war and peace, they were always tangled in ways that made simple choices impossible. "Then I will go with you," he said before thinking. "We can face them together." Lyra's eyes widened, reflecting both fear and admiration. "You cannot," she said, shaking her head slowly. "Humans are forbidden in Sarath war zones. Earth Command would never allow it, and the Dreeth, they would target you." Her voice broke slightly, betraying a worry she rarely let anyone see. "I do not want you to die, Elias. You are too precious to me to risk." He stepped closer, ignoring protocol, ignoring reason. "I do not care about orders. I care about you. I will not watch you fight and possibly die alone. I will not let the stars take you from me without trying." For a moment, Lyra simply stared at him, her glowing hands trembling at her sides. She had never seen humans act with such reckless courage for something or someone so personal. Her heart, usually so disciplined, thumped violently in her chest. "Elias, if you insist," she whispered, her voice both warning and invitation, "then you must be prepared. This war is not like the ones humans fight. The Dreeth will not show mercy." Days passed in a blur of preparation. Elias contacted Earth Command, but his pleas were ignored. Every moment he spent with Lyra became precious and fragile, like holding a crystal over an abyss. He learned of her people's history, of their gentle ways, of how they endured for centuries because they fought with intelligence and heart, not just weapons. And yet he also learned of the fear that now consumed her, fear for her people, fear for her home, fear for him. One night before she left, they stood on the observation deck together. The station rotated slowly, giving them a view of the glittering stars beyond. Elias could feel the tension in her body, the fear she tried so hard to hide. "Elias," she said softly, her silver eyes fixed on his, "if I do not return, if this war takes me, I want you to know that meeting you has changed everything. You have shown me courage, hope, and warmth. Do not forget that, even if I am lost to the stars." Elias swallowed hard. He had fought countless enemies, faced death in ways that would have shattered any other man, but nothing had prepared him for the ache of possibly losing someone he had come to care for so deeply. "You will return," he said firmly, though his voice trembled. "I will not let the galaxy take you. I do not care how far I have to go or how many laws I break. You will come back to me." Lyra reached out, her glowing fingers brushing his hand. The contact was electric and grounding at the same time. "Humans always believe in impossible things," she said softly, almost smiling. "Perhaps that is why you changed the galaxy without knowing it." The next morning she left. Her ship departed, leaving Elias on the observation deck with the cold metal of the station and the silent stars above. The warmth she had brought into his life seemed to retreat with her, and yet he knew, deep in the marrow of his bones, that he could not stand idly by. Somewhere among the chaos of burning worlds and desperate battles, she needed him, and he would find a way to be there. As he watched her vessel disappear into the distant glow of space, Elias whispered into the empty hangar, "I will not lose you, Lyra. Not now, not ever." The words floated into the silence, carried only by the hum of the station. They were a promise to the stars, a vow that his heart would not rest until hers was safe. And with that vow, the shadow rising between worlds became a call to courage, a test of love and loyalty that neither human nor Sarath had faced before. The news came slowly at first, in broken messages and fragmented transmissions. Then it arrived in waves, overwhelming every communication channel on the station. The Dreeth were advancing rapidly, leaving destruction in their wake. Entire outposts that had once been thriving were now silent. Elias could feel the tension building in his chest, a heavy weight that would not lift. Each new report brought with it a spike of fear he could not push aside. And all the while, Lyra was out there, somewhere in the chaos, facing impossible odds with the people she loved. Late one night, as the stars shimmered coldly beyond the observation deck, Elias received a transmission from her. The screen flickered, and then her face appeared pale and strained, with smoke trailing behind her ship. "Elias," she said, her voice barely steady, "if you are seeing this, then know I am alive, but we are losing ground. The Dreeth, they are relentless. Our capital, it may fall." She paused, swallowing a shudder that tried to escape. "I do not know if I can protect everyone, but I wanted you to hear my voice, at least once more, if this is the last time." Elias clenched his fist so tightly his knuckles ached. He had faced death countless times, yet nothing had prepared him for this helplessness. The knowledge that someone he cared for, someone who had slowly become his anchor in a galaxy of chaos, was in real danger and he could not be there. His throat tightened and he swallowed the lump of fear. "I won't let them take you," he muttered to himself, though no one could hear him. I won't let the stars claim you." He left the command center in a rush, ignoring the shouts of officers and the warnings of subordinates. He found a small scout ship and began preparations to leave the station immediately, despite knowing that his actions would bring punishment, perhaps exile or worse. He did not care. For the first time in his life, he fought not for orders, not for duty, not for medals or glory, but for her, for Lyra. The human heart, fragile in body but strong in will, would not stand idly by when the one it loved was in danger. During the flight through the outer borders of Sarath's space, Elias' mind raced. He recalled the moments they had shared, the quiet conversations on the observation deck, the gentle touch of her hand, her soft voice that had called him brave. He thought of her courage, her determination to protect her people even when fear clawed at her chest. He remembered her words, "Humans always believe in impossible things." She had believed he could survive anything. And now he had to prove that he could survive long enough to reach her. When he arrived near the Sarath capital, the sight that met him made his heart tighten further. Smoke and fire blotted out the stars, massive ships streaked across the sky, and the sound of distant explosions rattled the hull of his ship. He saw small Sarath vessels trying to hold the line, but they were few against the overwhelming Dreeth fleet. And then, amidst the chaos, he saw her, Lyra, standing on the bridge of a Sarath command ship, her hands glowing with energy as she tried to shield civilians from the worst of the attack. She was exhausted, every line of her body telling him that she had fought beyond her limits. Their eyes met for a brief, fleeting moment, and something passed between them, a mixture of relief, fear, hope, and unspoken promise. Elias did not hesitate. He jumped from his ship onto the nearest platform, fighting alongside her, using his weapons and skills to cover the civilians and the Sarath defenders. Side by side, human and alien, they became a force that neither the Dreeth nor the chaos could ignore. He realized that he was no longer just fighting battles for strategy or survival. He was fighting for her, for the bond they had quietly built, for the fragile yet unbreakable thread of trust and affection that had grown between them. The hours that followed were a blur of fire, courage, and desperation. Yet amidst the destruction, something inside Elias settled. He understood now that the human heart, fragile though it may seem, could endure horrors and still shine with hope. And in this realization he found strength, not just to survive, but to protect the one person who had awakened that hope within him. Finally, after a long, grueling fight, the Dreeth retreated, their forces broken by the combined will of human ingenuity and Sarath determination. Lyra collapsed against him, exhausted, and he held her, feeling her trembling hands in his. Neither spoke for long minutes. Words were unnecessary. The stars themselves seemed to pause, holding witness to the bond forged not just in safety and calm, but in fire, fear, and shared courage. In that moment, Elias knew one thing with certainty. He would cross the galaxy 1,000 times if it meant keeping her safe. And Lyra, sensing his unwavering resolve, allowed herself to lean into him, letting the warmth and hope of their quiet bond grow stronger amidst the ruins of war. Elias' heart pounded like a drum in the silence of space as he approached the outskirts of the Sarath capital. Smoke and fire still lingered in the atmosphere, painting the skies with shades of orange and crimson. Debris floated in the zero-gravity void, and distant explosions rattled through the hull of his small scout ship. Yet nothing, the chaos, the danger, the overwhelming odds, could shake his resolve. He had promised himself he would not lose Lyra. That vow, uttered quietly in the emptiness of space, had become a fire burning inside him. No law, no order, no army could stop him now. He navigated through the debris field with precise movements, feeling every heartbeat, every flicker of tension. The Dreath had left destruction in their wake, and the Sarath defenders were struggling to hold the remaining territory. Elias' hands gripped the controls tighter. Every calculation, every evasive maneuver was done with one purpose: to reach her, to make sure she survived. He was no longer just a soldier following orders. He was a human fighting for love, for trust, for the bond that had grown quietly and steadily in the weeks they had spent together. When he finally landed near the main command center, the devastation was overwhelming. Ships lay shattered like fallen birds, and flames licked the edges of what had once been the proud heart of the Sarath capital. And there she was, Lyra, standing among the injured and the frightened, her silver glow dimmed from exhaustion, her hands trembling as she shielded civilians from the remnants of the Dreath attack. The sight struck Elias in the chest like a physical blow. He had seen people fight before, he had seen destruction, he had faced death many times. But seeing her there, vulnerable and determined, made something inside him tighten, break, and rebuild all at once. "Lyra," he shouted, his voice cutting through the smoke and chaos. She turned, her luminous eyes widening at the sight of him. For a brief instant, fear and disbelief crossed her face, and then relief, sharp and beautiful, took its place. "Elias," she whispered, almost breathless. He didn't have time to respond. The Dreath were still attacking, and civilians were trapped in the rubble. Without hesitation, Elias grabbed her hand and pulled her to cover, moving with a speed and precision honed from years of war. Together, human and Sarath, they fought through the chaos. Elias used his weapons to protect her and the people she loved, while Lyra's energy shield flickered to life, wrapping around them like a silver cocoon. Side by side, they moved through fire and smoke, navigating the devastation, their trust in each other absolute and unspoken. Hours passed like minutes. Time became a blur of adrenaline, determination, and shared resolve. Elias realized something profound as he fought. This was more than survival. This was proof that the human spirit, though fragile in body, could endure anything for someone they loved. He saw courage in Lyra not as a command or duty, but as a personal choice, and he knew that his own courage had been awakened by her presence, by her trust, by her unwavering belief that even the smallest human could make a difference. Finally, they reached a vantage point overlooking the remaining Dreath forces. Lyra, exhausted but resolute, whispered, "Elias, we cannot hold them forever. If we fail—" Her voice trembled, but her eyes sought his. "We won't fail," he said firmly. "Not while I'm here, not while I can stand. You're not facing this alone." His words, simple yet unbreakable, gave her a small but unmistakable hope. Together, they devised a plan combining human ingenuity with Sarath technology. They activated an ancient planetary shield, one that had lain dormant for centuries, and watched as it expanded across the city like a bubble of light, forcing the Dreath fleet to retreat. As the last Dreath ships vanished into the void, Elias collapsed beside Lyra, holding her trembling hands. The weight of the battle, the danger, and the fear they had endured lifted slightly, replaced by a quiet, profound relief. They had survived not just because of strategy or skill, but because they had trusted each other, fought together, and refused to surrender. Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes glistening with emotion. "You came for me," she whispered. Elias smiled, brushing a strand of her glowing hair from her face. "Of course, I couldn't let the stars take you from me," he said softly. And in that moment, amidst the ruins of her city and the echoes of war, something deeper began to bloom, something that would change both their lives forever. A bond stronger than fear, stronger than duty, and unbreakable even in the face of the galaxy's darkest moments. After the Dreeth retreated, silence returned to the Sarath capital, but it was not a peaceful silence. The air still smelled of smoke and ash, the ruins of the city standing as a stark reminder of the horrors they had survived. Yet amidst the devastation, there was a fragile sense of calm, a moment of quiet after the storm. Elias walked beside Lyra, helping her navigate the shattered streets. She leaned slightly on him, tired from battle, yet her silver eyes remained alert, thoughtful, searching. The war had tested her courage, her strength, and her spirit, but it had also revealed something deeper, something unspoken between them. They reached a balcony overlooking the heart of the capital. The city was scarred, but the glow of emergency lights reflected on the tall buildings, making the ruins shimmer like faint stars against the dark. Lyra stepped forward, brushing her hands against the railing, her glowing fingers leaving soft traces of light in the air. She was quiet for a long moment, as if gathering the courage to speak what had been building inside her. Elias waited, knowing that whatever she was about to say would matter, that it would change the delicate balance of their bond. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "Elias, today I felt something I have never felt before, true fear, not for my people, though they are my heart, but for you. I thought if I lost you, I would lose a part of myself." Her silver eyes glimmered, catching the faint light of the city below. "I have seen the universe in its vastness, witnessed countless lives, countless worlds, yet nothing has touched me as deeply as you have. You are different." Elias felt his chest tighten. His hands, still steady from battle, trembled slightly as he reached for hers. "Lyra," he said softly, "I never thought anyone could understand what it means to feel so deeply, but you see me." The words caught in his throat, heavy with all the battles they had endured, all the moments of fear and hope they had shared. She turned fully to face him, her glowing presence both beautiful and fragile. "I thought the Dreeth would take you from me. The thought, it tore my heart open. I did not realize that humans could hold so much courage, or that a single heart could mean so much." Her voice wavered, trembling like light over water. Elias, I love you, more than any law, any duty, any star." The words hung in the air between them, delicate and eternal. Elias felt warmth surge through him, spreading from his chest to every corner of his being. He had fought wars, faced death, and seen countless tragedies, yet never had he known a moment like this, raw, honest, unshakable. He took a deep breath, letting her words sink in, feeling the truth of them resonate in his own heart. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice breaking slightly, "I love you too. I have, from the first moment I saw you. From the first time you spoke to me, I felt something I have never felt in all my years. You have shown me hope, light, a reason to keep believing." Tears glimmered in her eyes, catching the faint city lights, her trembling smile soft and fragile. She reached out, taking his hands in hers, and Elias felt the warmth of her touch, the energy of her being connecting with his in a way that words could not capture. "Then we are bound," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Not by law, not by duty, but by something far stronger, by our hearts." They stood in silence for long moments, the ruins of the city stretching out beneath them, the stars shining far above, and the universe itself seeming to hold its breath. Around them, everything else faded, the war, the destruction, the fear, and only the quiet bond remained, strong and unbroken. Elias realized that their love was more than a feeling. It was courage, it was trust, it was the power to face impossible odds and survive. "Elias," Lyra whispered again, her voice soft but certain, "I want to stay by your side, always, not just for the moment, not just for a battle, but for everything that comes after." Elias nodded, brushing a glowing strand of her hair from her face. "Then we will face everything together," he said. "Whatever comes, whatever the galaxy throws at us, we will face it as one. I will never leave you." For the first time in a long while, both of them felt a sense of peace, fragile but real. The bond they had forged in fear and fire had now been recognized in words, in hearts laid bare, and in a promise that neither distance, nor time, nor danger could ever break. And in that quiet moment above the scarred city, Elias and Lyra understood something timeless. Love was not weakness. It was strength. It was the courage to stand tall even when the universe seemed to crumble. And as they stood there, side by side, hand in hand, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if witnessing a human heart and an alien heart united, fearless and eternal. The dawn over the Sarath capital was quiet, almost fragile, as if the universe itself had paused to watch what would happen. The fires of the battle had died down, leaving smoke curling faintly against the early light. The city was scarred, its buildings broken and streets littered with debris, yet in the midst of the ruins there was beauty. Soft rays of sunlight reflected off the silver surfaces of the Sarath structures, and the air carried a faint scent of hope mixed with the ash of yesterday's war. Elias walked beside Lyra, feeling her hand in his. Her touch was warm, steady, and familiar, a gentle anchor after everything they had endured. They climbed the hill that overlooked the city, the place where the Sarath honored their deepest vows. The sacred lights above shimmered in soft blues and silvers, dancing like ribbons across the sky. Lyra stopped at the top, turning to face him. Her eyes were bright, her silver skin glowing softly in the morning light, but beneath that glow was something more fragile, vulnerability, hope, and courage all mixed together. Elias could feel his chest tighten. He had fought countless battles, faced death in ways that would have broken others, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. This was not a fight with weapons or strategy. This was a battle of the heart. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she reached toward him, her glowing fingers brushing his. She took a deep breath, steadying herself as if she were drawing strength from the very stars above. "Elias," she said softly, her voice steady but full of emotion, "my people bond for life. Only once, only with the one who holds their heart. I wish to bond with you. I hope that you will accept my life as yours." Elias' heart surged. All the battles, all the dangers, all the fear and pain they had faced together led to this single, fragile moment. His throat tightened, and he swallowed hard, feeling words rise inside him that were both simple and infinite. "Lyra, I would cross every galaxy, fight every battle again just to stand here with you. I would give everything I have to be by your side." Her eyes glimmered, tears catching the soft sunlight as she stepped closer. "Then, will you be my husband?" The question hung in the air, delicate and eternal, like a note held in perfect harmony. Elias felt time slow, as if the universe had stilled to witness his answer. The ruins below, the glowing lights above, the faint hum of the city recovering, all of it faded. There was only her eyes, and the truth between them. He reached for her hands fully, holding them gently but firmly, feeling the warmth of her life connecting with his own. "Yes," he whispered, his voice steady and yet full of trembling emotion. "Yes, Lyra, always yes." A wave of light seemed to ripple from her hands, soft and radiant, wrapping around them as though the universe itself was blessing their bond. The sacred lights above shimmered brighter, reflecting the joy, the relief, and the love that had been carefully nurtured through fire and fear. Around them, Sarath witnesses bowed in silent honor, recognizing not just the bond of two hearts, but the courage it took to reach this moment. Elias held her close, feeling the steady beat of her heart, the warmth of her life mingling with his. He realized something profound. Humans were often called fragile, weak, or small by others, yet in truth, it was human courage, human love, and human loyalty that could move stars, change destinies, and bind lives across worlds. He had fought not just for survival, but for the one thing that made survival worth it. And now he had won. Not a war, not glory, but the heart of the woman he loved, the one being who had awakened something he thought long dead inside him. Lyra rested her head lightly against his chest, letting herself exhale, letting herself trust completely. "Elias, thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for believing in me, for standing by me, for being you." He kissed her forehead gently, feeling the pulse of her life, the courage that had carried them both through unimaginable danger. "And thank you," he replied, "for teaching me what it means to truly live, to love, and to fight for something greater than myself." For a long time they simply stood together, hands intertwined, hearts beating in quiet harmony. The stars above reflected in their eyes, as if the universe itself wanted to witness this moment of connection, this eternal promise. They had faced fire, fear, and darkness, and emerged not just alive, but bound, stronger than any threat the galaxy could muster. In that moment, Elias and Lyra understood something timeless. Love was not fragile. Love was courage. Love was strength. And it was, above all, worth crossing galaxies for. And as the first sun of the Sarath morning rose over the broken but recovering city, Elias whispered softly into her glowing hair, "Forever, Lyra. Always forever." Lyra smiled, and for the first time in her long life she felt complete. The stars above sparkled, the world held its breath, and two hearts, human and alien, joined as one, eternal, unbroken, and shining against the dark canvas of the universe.